Climate Change Commission. I see that Karan is having audio issues. I would like her or someone else from OCCSR to, oh, I see Kiana. Okay, great. She's just logging on now. To do roll call for us, please.
I can facilitate that, Chair. Starting with Chair Aligato,
Present.
Vice Chair Keener,
Present.
Commissioner Islam,
Present.
Commissioner Otsuka,
Present. Good morning.
Commissioner Romine.
Present.
Chair, all commissioners are present. We certainly have quorum.
Great, excellent. So one of our third agenda item is to welcome our new commissioners. So I just wanted to take the time to welcome Dr. Brad Romine and Kiana Otsuka to the commission. We're very excited to have you. And at this time, I just wanted to invite Kiana and Brad, if you wanted to say something short, maybe what you're most interested in focusing in on the coming year.
Chair, do you want me to go first?
Sounds good.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Kiana Otsuka. I'm excited to join the commission. I have a background in transportation planning and economics. So I'm particularly excited to help us tackle our greenhouse gas emissions from transportation, particularly ground transportation. Thank you.
Aloha. Good morning, everybody. I'm Brad Romine. Really honored and excited to work with the commission in the service of our community and our elected officials and staff at the city. I'm a coastal geologist by background. I do a lot of work around sea level rise resilience, coastal hazards resilience, but also resource management and just kind of general overall climate adaptation science. And really looking forward to helping the commission and our communities on particularly around the issues we're facing with coastal hazards along our shorelines with climate change and sea level rise. But also, we have a large range of topics to work on. So I'm looking forward to being educated by my fellow commission members and our community members and helping you with all those topics. Thanks.
Mahalo. We are so welcome to have new members and are excited to get to work together. We have a lot of topics, no end in topics in sight. And with that, we're going to move on to agenda item 4, which is approval of our minutes. And we'll also take any questions and comments from the commissioners about that, as well as any comments and testimony from the public about our minutes specifically. So I believe everybody had received a copy. We're reviewing the May 20th, the April 8th, and the July 29th. Kiana and Brad, I don't know if you have any comments, but I'm going to start with the April 8th comments and minutes. And I just wanted to ask Vicky or Melanie if you have any comments on the minutes as they stand currently.
I was absent from this meeting, but they look clear to me. So no comments.
Thank you. Melanie, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I looked through them. They look accurate to our conversation, so no additional comments.
Great. And I have very minor non-substantive, like grammatical suggestions, so I will convey that to OCCSR. Given that the changes that I have are just really minor, is there a motion to adopt the minutes of the Climate Change Commission from April 2022?
This is Melanie, so moved.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Okay, shall we put it to a vote that we adopt these? Everyone in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair, can I abstain?
Yes.
Yeah, was that Kiana? Yeah, should we abstain from these votes? Sounds like we should on these 3 sets of minutes.
Yes, although Brad, you did speak in the July meeting, so you may want to look at it and see if your comments are accurate. But okay. Yeah, for this one, you may abstain.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so I'm noting that Brad and Kiana are abstaining. Melanie, Victoria, and I are all ayes to adopt it, and so we will be adopting the April 8th minutes. Great. We're gonna move on to the May 20th minutes. And I'm going to ask Vicky if you have any comments on this.
No comments. It looks good.
Melanie, do you have any comments?
No comments as well. Thanks.
Okay, great. And I am reminded that I forgot to ask the public if they have any comments on our minutes. But if I miss it, please put it in the chat and I will be sure to recognize you and allow for discussion. And I have, again, very minor comments that have to do with grammar and Hawaiian language orthography. So I will pass those on to OCCSR staff. Given that the comments are non-substantive in nature, do we have, is there a motion to adopt the minutes from May 2022?
I motion to adopt the minutes.
Is there a second?
A second.
By show of hands, can we see anybody who wishes to abstain from May 20th? I note that Brad and Kiana are abstaining. By show of hands, can we say who does want to adopt the minutes?
Aye.
Okay, so that's everybody. We have 3 ayes, 2 abstentions, and the minutes from May 20th are adopted. Okay. Again, Director Gonzer is reminding that any public participants to please either submit questions in the chat or use the raise hand function, and we'll be sure to recognize you if you have any. The final minutes, which Brad, you may want to comment on since you did provide some feedback to former Chair Fletcher's questions about sea level rise. Are there any comments that anybody on the commission would like to make? I'll start with Melanie. Do you have any comments on the July 29th testimony? On the July 29 minutes.
I do not. Thank you.
Vicky?
Nope, looks good.
Great. Brad, do you have any comments on anything?
No
that you
comments. The portion of the meeting that I participated in looks like it's accurately portrayed there. Thank you.
Excellent. Kiana, I'm assuming that you have no comments at this time. And then again, I have just very minor comments with regard to Hawaiian language orthography. So given that the comments are 0 pretty much, is there anyone, are any of the commissioners, would they like to abstain from this? Please raise your hand at this time. Okay, I see that Commissioner Otsuka has abstained. I would like to recognize that Kuhan Pike Mander, oh, I see. Okay, would like to submit testimony. We will take it at
Looks like number 12.
at number 12. Yeah, so Kuhan, if you can stick with us, item number 12 will allow you to give testimony regarding that at this time. And then Tankini, Dr. Kini, we will address yours in the next item for communications and correspondence from the public. Okay, thank you for putting that into the chat. Okay, so seeing as how we have an abstention from Commissioner Otsuka, please raise your hand if you would like to adopt the minutes from July 29th.
Chair, I missed I should probably abstain too from the vote on this as well.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
So I will note that Commissioner Romine and Otsuka are abstaining. Commissioners Islam, Keener, and Aligato are voting aye. And so, yes, we are going to adopt the minutes of the July meeting. Zooming right along, we are now on to agenda item 4. Oh, sorry. Agenda item 5, which is correspondence and communications from the public. This month, we received a number of correspondences, which I will just make note of. Just so you know, if we receive any kind of information or articles, I'm not going to pass them on, but they are available. We received the Kamana newsletter from the Hawaii Interfaith Energy and Climate Connection, and we also received some articles by Rich Rebman on solar cooling and global warming. We were CC'd on a letter from the Surfrider Foundation Oahu chapter to Rear Admiral Jeffrey Killen regarding lead contamination at Pu'uloa. None of those correspondences were directly addressed to us that required a response. And now finally, I will turn to Dr. Tonkini's request for a guidance document on carbon emissions from airline travel. Before opening the floor to Dr. Kinney, I would like to see if there are any questions or comments from the commissioners regarding the testimony that we received. So I'll start with Commissioner Keener, Chair Keener, Vice Chair Keener. Do you have any comments on the testimony we received from Dr. Kinney?
Thank you, Dr. Keeney, for continuing to bring up this very important topic. And while I do, I continue to think that this is not a topic that the Commission both has expertise to address and is still more appropriate to be addressed at the state level. So I know that you're not going to like that answer, but those are still my comments on your testimony, and I'll pass it on to other commissioners.
Yes, so I apologize by way of summarizing Dr. Keeney's request. Dr. Keeney, for the second time, has requested that we address global warming emissions from air transport of visitors to Hawaii as a guidance document. I recognize that people in the chat have requested. I'm going to finish up with commissioners' comments and questions, and then I will take public testimony. So Commissioner Islam, do you have any comments on Dr. Keeney's testimony?
I do not at this time, Chair. Thank you.
Commissioner Romine.
Just thank you, Dr. Keeney, for, I guess, continually raising this important issue. I don't have any additional comments at this time. I did review the written testimony. Thanks.
And Commissioner Otsuka, do you have any comments at this time?
Yeah, hi, Dr. Keeney. My regular job is I work at the Hawaii State Energy Office. And part of the branch that I work on, we work on ground, marine, and aviation transportation emissions and energy consumption. So I heard from Dr. Keener that we think that that might be better taken at the state level. So something to consider talking to the Hawaii State Energy Office about. But yeah, thank you for your testimony. I think it's really important and a really tough issue to tackle.
Okay, now that we've finished with comments from the commissioners, I'd like to start. I know Dr. Keeney hasn't raised his hand, but since it's his testimony, I would like to start by opening the floor for Dr. Keeney to provide comments on the testimony that he shared.
Yes, well, I will share testimony orally. I do have a response to a couple of the comments, though, that I have heard. And I know, first of all, that I raised this issue 2 years ago. As a matter of fact, I have spoken with Scott Glenn from the Energy Office about these issues, and I think that Scott is well aware of the several communications that I've submitted previously, but yet nothing in those 2 years has been done. I'm completely convinced, well, I'm convinced that the public of Hawaii is totally unaware of the magnitude of this problem. And I suspect that leadership of Hawaii is unaware of the magnitude of this problem. I presented my studies and subsequent comments to the State Climate Commission without a response from that entity. If this is an important issue, and I remember Chip Fletcher's comment in commenting to this commission 2 years ago on the study that I had presented. He used the phrase incredibly important data. How is it that we are lingering with this incredibly important data without making any headway toward informing leadership or the public of these issues. I think that would be primarily my comment. Since my original paper, the IPCC has endorsed a method as best available science for calculation of greenhouse gas emissions from aviation. And if we apply that method to the Hawaii Tourism Authority's numbers of visitors from their eight global regions of origin, we come up with a value of 24 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions in visitor air travel to Hawaii. If we apply that best available science method to the computations that Dr. Kaufman made before this commission a year ago, which was analysis using the state greenhouse gas inventory, we arrive at a figure of 20 million tons emissions from visitor air travel here. But that state greenhouse gas inventory does not allow for consideration of connecting flights. And so if we add in connecting flights from airports in the various global regions, then again, we're back up to the mid-20s in terms of millions of tons of greenhouse gas emissions. And when we compare this to the state inventory report of the total net domestic greenhouse gas emissions at 13.6 million tons, we see that visitor air travel accounts for approximately twice all of Hawaii's domestic emissions. I think it's important for the public and for leadership to be aware of those numbers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dr. Keeney, and I appreciate that you kept on time. I have been trying to monitor the chat, so please, I apologize if I missed everyone. I just want to note that we will be taking testimony on this topic next from, and again, I apologize if I mispronounce any of your names, please correct me, Kuhan, then Corey, Recycle Hawaii, then Henry Curtis. And as a reminder, each person will have 3 minutes and I will keep my timer on. So I hope that is okay. I was following the order of the chat. So the next person will be Kuhan. Thanks.
Mahalo, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Kuhan. Dr. Tonkini has appeared twice before the Honolulu Climate Change Commission, as we've just heard, to urge the commission to conduct a formal study of global warming and the emissions from the air transport of visitors. And he was told by the commission that such a task is within the purview of the state, not within the city and county of Honolulu. So with all due respects, this to me seems very odd, especially considering that he's been ignored by the state. As Dr. Keeney points out, the commission has already undertaken 8 previous guidance documents, all of which are by no means specific to Honolulu County. With tourism, the #1 economic sector in Honolulu, and Hawaii being the most isolated landmass on the planet, accessible for the most part only by air transport, the shirking of assessing greenhouse gas emissions by the tourism industry could be viewed as gross negligence on the part of the commission. An accurate assessment of greenhouse gas emissions from tourism is Hawaii's biggest elephant in the living room that nobody wants to talk about. As we face the most urgent crisis in the history of humanity, we do not have the time nor the luxury to hand off responsibility elsewhere. What was the commission so afraid of? What is the commission so afraid of? The truth? I mean, if it is indeed the truth, it makes sense in a way, because hard data on tourist emissions might very well reveal that to live within the carrying capacity of the planet, we'd have to phase out all aviation. Perhaps therein lies the rub. The data can be generated. Doing something about it is an entirely different matter. The solutions are innately political and cultural, and we demand nothing less than authentic, active democracy, which is why I'm testifying here today. Our current economic and political systems might seem intractable, but if it's going to change, it's because people speak out. It's because Dr. Keeney took the countless hours to conduct his own research and study those of others and present it to the commission. It's because the commission will hopefully take heed of Dr. Keeney's proposal. None of us here today at this hearing sets the political and economic norms of society. It's the billionaire class that profits off the status quo, that sets the norms within which we all must operate. And to a certain degree, we the people do give them power, like the commission is today. It is the responsibility of all those who care about a livable future to support democracy and all vitality on the earth. And the first step is to support Dr. Keeney's proposal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kuhan, for your testimony. We note it, and I really appreciate it. The next person who will testify on this topic is Corey. I also want to note, after Henry Curtis, I'm going to have Director Gonzer add in.
Yeah, good morning, commissioners, and I'd like to second everything Kuhan said. Maybe the state should be doing this, but they're not doing it. And I guess we could just keep putting up solar panels and trying to figure out how to move all those hotels away from the shore while allowing airplanes to keep putting carbon in the air. But that's pretty much insanity. Oahu is responsible for most of the air visitors. In September 2019, Oahu had almost 500,000 visitors. By contrast, Maui had about 200,000, Kauai and Hawaii Island around 100,000. About 7 million airline passengers arrive in Hawaii each year, and over 5 million of these go through the Honolulu airport. The Honolulu airport is the most popular first stop for visitors since it has many nonstop flights from the United States and other countries. And by contrast, United Airlines is going to quit flying between Hilo and Los Angeles. You have it in your power to help prevent climate change and have Honolulu lead the way for the world in preventing climate change. We can show the world how to transform an economy heavily dependent on a polluting industry into an economy based on sustainable, environmentally friendly practices. I think you should take a stab at it, try to embarrass the state into doing something, and please act on this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Corey, for your testimony. We will now take testimony from Recycle Hawaii. And Recycle Hawaii, when you come online, if you could please state the name of who you are for our records.
Yes. Hello, I'm Christopher Dean, and I am the president of Recycle Hawaii. And we stand by Dr. Keeney's recommendations and his research and his advice. And furthermore, I would like to point out that during the Democratic convention, county and state convention, there was a resolution that we passed to put a greens fee on tourism travel to help mitigate the impacts of their air travel things. So this is an issue that needs to be addressed at every level of government. And we think that the commission has an important role to play into, pressuring, or I should say maybe encouraging representatives at every level of government to take these crisis, this global crisis seriously, and to urge anyone and everyone who has the ability to move legislation forward that would address the carbon emissions coming from tourism. And one last thing I would like to point out is that we are losing our beaches. And that is due to sea level rise and development, coastal development. And it's going to get worse. And when it gets worse, we're going to lose our beaches. And then if we have a tourism economy that's like centric on that form of economic growth, well, you know, it's over, because nobody's going to come to Hawaii to see mud and broken rebar and concrete along the shoreline and dead reefs. So, you know, I think it behooves everyone involved, you know, at an economic level to, you know, take this seriously, fast track any and all legislation that can be addressing the impact that we are contributing to this problem, mainly through, as Kuhan mentioned, through air visitor travel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris, for that testimony. We are listening. At this time, I'm going to ask Henry Curtis to, unless, do you want Matt to go and then Henry, is this okay? Or do you want Matt to go first and then you, or you're good? Sorry.
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, you got your 3 minutes, go for it.
Life of the Land has been very impressed by Dr. Keeney's research that has shown that air emissions is greater than all other Hawaii emissions combined, and therefore must be addressed. Now, over the last few years, all government entities at all levels have asserted that some other government entity should address the issue. That finger pointing has to end. Somebody has to address the issue. If the county government policies were neutral on climate change, then maybe they could say, okay, it should go to the state instead of the county. But the county adopts a number of policies that directly affect the amount of tourism impacts. So a guidance document can provide the county legislature and the mayor with options, with guidance, and with suggestions. And we would encourage this county commission, which has done so much really important work over the years and which has led the state in showing the paths forward on climate change, to take this important step. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Director Gonzer, would you like to comment on this?
No, again, I wanted to, one, thank the commissioners, obviously, as volunteer members of the community stepping up to serve this really critical function, and just how active, you know, in only 4.5 years, the level of detailed guidance and support that has been provided to our young office, and in support of now 2 administrations and different elected officials as well. Certainly, even in line with Chris's comments around shoreline issues, right? The commission has released 2 sea level rise guidance documents, a specific shoreline setback guidance document that is now integrally included in bills 41 and 42 at the city council right now, which we would appreciate everyone's eyes on and participation and interest if you are concerned about some of the coastal management challenges we have. Just wanted to provide some comments in terms of how we do measure. Certainly, I'm not as steeped as Dr. Keeney and others on the methodology and the differences that they may be alluding to with respect to how we have historically been at the county level doing our annual greenhouse gas emissions. If you look at what is currently online, we certainly saw a dip in emissions from 2019 to 2020, which unequivocally is primarily driven because there was a significantly reduced aviation. So just in the sheer fact that when we have to and do produce our 2021 GHG inventory, it'll show an uptick, and it'll show that primarily, my hunch, through air transportation, which is another speaking point. Just like this committee, all of the impassioned and dedicated community members that are testifying here. That's obviously, air travel is not just visitors, right? We all depend upon and do ourselves travel from time to time, either interstate or intrastate. And we measure other performance efforts in building energy use, water energy use. We greatly appreciate the commission's support in testifying on what was Bill 22, establishing a Better Buildings Benchmarking Program. So come June of next year, the end of June, all buildings, regardless of use type, greater than 100,000 square feet, will need to report annually their energy use intensity through an EPA portfolio manager. And we'll be sharing that out publicly, right? Trying to unleash the power of data to support market mechanism, to support more empowered community members to be informed about how things are performing in terms of water and energy use, all in support of the city's climate action plan, the state's commitment to long-term, by no later than 2045, net carbon negative. So I just wanted to provide additional context that we certainly have methods that we've been measuring. Again, I'm not as expert on the methodologies that perhaps Dr. Keeney and others are alluding to that might be different in terms of the protocols that we've been utilizing locally. But this is a great forum, right? This is the benefit of having the Climate Change Commission. You all are grappling with so many things in addition to, your work day. So the more that we can receive information to consider how to advance it and advocate it up, irrespective of a guidance document, right? This body, we have a new administration coming in at the state, great opportunity to level set and jump back in with that commission in conjunction with this commission. So I just wanted to share that perspective about how there has been progress, how the commission has been extremely active and driving and influencing local comprehension, and just the fact that we can continue to have these meetings is in support of that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzer. And I just wanted to add my comment to that, which is that we very, very much value the words and voices of our community. You will see later in this meeting that we are looking to make more transparent a process by which we consider new guidance documents that does take into account the needs and desires of our community, and people showing up and giving testimony and really allowing us to know what you folks need and want to see is exactly one of them. And so when I say we have heard you, let me assure you that we have definitely heard the voices who have spoken today. And I do also want to remind the commission that in previous years before, when we, I think it was in May or June when we discussed what we want to talk about, we did kick around an idea of a broad tourism guidance document. And so this really will help guide some of those conversations as we move forward. At this time, I did want to consult with Courtney Suako, our corporation counsel, to just have us remind us about, what is our purview per our charter.
Yes, thank you, Rosie, and good morning, climate change commissioners, and welcome to the new members of the commission. I'm Courtney Suako. I am the Deputy Corporation Counsel who has been advising the Climate Change Commission since its inception, so very honored to be holding that position. Just a reminder to all, the Climate Change Commission is established under the charter, and it is established under a subsection actually to the section in the charter that establishes the Office of Climate Change Sustainability and Resiliency. If you look at section 6-107, subsection H of the charter, it states that the Office of Climate Change Sustainability and Resiliency has the ability to, quote, convene a climate change commission consisting of 5 members with expertise in climate change in Hawaii, which commission shall meet no less than twice annually for the purpose of gathering the latest science and information on climate change effects in the city and providing advice as is deemed appropriate to the Executive for Climate Change and Sustainability, the mayor, council, and executive departments of the city. So that is the limitation and full charter authority for the commission. I do just also want to touch on some of the concerns I've heard about responsibility. And while I am not an expert on how responsibility is shared between the state, the federal government, and the city in this regard, I will just remind everybody that the city and county of Honolulu consists of the island of Oahu. So that is a charter definition as well. Air travel is under the Federal Aviation Administration. And of course, we all know that airports like the Daniel Inouye Airport is under the jurisdiction of the state. So the city does not have jurisdiction over those aspects that may be at the root of the concerns that are being voiced today.
Thank you so much, Courtney, for continuing to provide us with and remind us about some of our helping us draw within the lines. I really was listening to the part where it is our responsibility to bring to the public, especially of Oahu, the most up-to-date science on this. I just want to note that you know, we would want to, if we were to proceed with this, we would want a general assessment of tourism, not just specifically this included. I am concerned also about whether or not we have the expertise on the commission to do this. Certainly, we do rely on having experts come in. And so I would also remind the public that we would rely on you all to help recommend to the commission key expertise in this area, as well as stakeholders that we would want to bring into this process. I see that Commissioner Gonzer has his hand up. I'm going to close out because I don't see any further testimony or requests unless Director Gonzer wants to talk about it some more. I just am saying, once you finish talking about it, Matt, please feel free to just flow right into our next agenda item.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I realized I was remiss just in the sentiments around public awareness, leadership awareness. It is explicitly recognized in the city's climate action plan that we cannot be successful if we are not addressing aviation. It says that up front. It is not an explicit category listed within the city's climate action plan, primarily because we don't have direct influence over rules, regulations, practices of that industry. But it undoubtedly recognizes aviation as a significant contribution to our locally generated, or, you know, per the different methodologies out there, just our collective emissions pie. But we wholeheartedly acknowledge that it was discussed publicly in years of community meetings all around the islands and the workshopping. And we know that if we are to be successful, we will need to tackle emissions from aviation. So thank you, Chair. And per your guidance, I'll just roll right into the next agenda item, if that's okay. Great. So it has been a little bit since we've had a last meeting. So I won't go through 3 months of updates, but I'll try to key in on a few things. And starting with a little bit of a Feel Good Friday, I wanted to acknowledge 2 awards that our office and then an interdepartmental group received in the month of September. So our office received the American Planning Association Hawaii Chapter Award for Public Outreach and Education. This was really informed by something that we've updated the past couple of meetings regarding taking stock of our success in connecting with people in place around the island for the project Climate Ready Oahu, where we recognized, especially through primarily public community polling and online virtual meetings, we were missing certain demographics and geographies. So we innovated around partnering with Malama Learning Center, who served as a hub to help us connect out to other spoke place-based, community-based organizations. And through that process of focusing in on the North Shore with a couple of nonprofits and the West Side with 2 additional nonprofits, and a really innovative way to talk about increasing temperature and sea level rise. We're pleased that the Hawaii chapter and the jurors recognized and awarded the team for that effort. And then the commission may recall support on thinking through a One Water climate adaptation policy and white paper. And over the years, in partnership with BWS, the Climate Change Commission, City Council at that time, there was an ordinance 20-47 that was enacted in late 2020, which included a One Water climate adaptation policy. This method of convening and bringing interdepartmental efforts to bear and us coming to grips with this opportunity to work together to more streamline and level set our principles and commitments to each other for various infrastructure to prepare community for tomorrow's conditions. was recognized by the U.S. Water Alliance. So we were surprised and pleased that locally the Hawaii Community Foundation, who's been a partner in a lot of our water infrastructure and long-range water planning over the years, nominated us. And we didn't know, but we won. So we were excited about that, and representatives from Board of Water Supply, Environmental Services, and Facility Maintenance were in Milwaukee for both a conference and then as part of the award ceremony. And then quickly moving along, in late August, we had the pleasure of welcoming in 6 new AmeriCorps Vistas within our office and the Office of Economic Revitalization. At that time, we did bid aloha and mahalo to 3 outgoing Vistas, but we're super excited because 2 of them shortly thereafter became city employees within our office and Office of Economic Revitalization. In our team, we've welcomed Haley Campbell, a former Vista, now serving as the Climate Adaptation Specialist and Vista Leader. Sarah Harris has joined the team as the Long-Term Disaster and Hazard Mitigation Program Manager. And just this week, Marissa Kunch has joined the team as the Energy Efficiency Specialist to really lead on the new Better Building Benchmarking Ordinance. And currently, we're recruiting for a Flood and Resilience Specialist and additionally evaluating candidate material for the Climate Equity Program Manager. And then lastly, just wrapping up, we hope to come back to the commission to talk about Climate Ready Oahu, perhaps we can coordinate on an early 2023 meeting, Chair, just to share an update as we've done in the past as we move towards public review draft and hopefully progressing on adoption through the first half of next year. Big kudos to our food security and sustainability team, who recently received a USDA grant to support our participation in the statewide Hawaii Farm to School implementation plan. And this really advances a newly launched Oahu Good Food program, working with big institutional food purchasers so that we better assess the inputs to our food management practices so that we can potentially even be a better resource for the local agricultural sector and think about our heft as institutional food buyers in support of that economy. And then most recently, we received about a $1.2 million award from the Department of Defense in a specific program that has never been tapped locally. It's an interesting one where communities with installations can get support for quote unquote outside the fence line assessments and action plans, because many of the community members, either service members or residents that perhaps work on military installations, live outside the fence line. So any of the vulnerabilities, whether it be around ground transportation, drainage, or otherwise that are a risk for that area, are ultimately a risk for that military installation. So we're pleased to convene this work in the coming months, focused in the Ko'olaupoko area in partnership with Marine Corps Base Hawaii. And our direct partner on the work is the UHSOS Coastal Resilience Collaborative. So we look forward to providing more updates on that in the coming months. And then lastly, maybe just a plug or a question and something we can coordinate on a future meeting. We'd be happy to come back and talk about some of our outreach. And as new information becomes available from the federal government regarding the Inflation Reduction Act, and trying to find ways that we can help facilitate residents, community members, and government to coordinate on bringing those resources to bear. Just for perspective, the infrastructure law is a much bigger federal investment, but with respect to the support for climate, the IRA is 100% for climate, whereas the infrastructure bill has a lot of other good things and does not have such immediate and direct focus for climate action. So we think it's really imperative that we continue to talk about it, because we cannot assume that just because there's money out there, it'll hit the ground and have impact unless we're working on it together. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Director Gonzer, and I want to commend you and your office for award-worthy actions and an implementation of the climate adaptation plan and the strategy and mitigation. At this time, I want to open it up to the other commissioners who have any comments or questions for Director Gonzer. I think we should start off with some of our new commissioners. So I'm going to start with Commissioner Romine. Do you have any comments or questions for Matt?
Just thank you, Matt, for that update and all the great work that your office is doing. And congratulations on those awards. It's fantastic and well-deserved. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Romine. Commissioner Otsuka, do you have any comments or questions on anything that Director Gonzer spoke about?
Oh, Chair, you muted yourself, but I think you're asking if I have questions.
Yes, sorry.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, no problem. Yeah, Matt, thank you so much for all your hard work. I was able to experience the outreach activity you folks did at your most recent outreach event. I thought it was really neat. So I'm glad you folks are getting the recognition for that activity. Chair, I was wondering if I could ask a question about something that Matt didn't bring up, but is related to the office. Matt, I wanted to know whether, related to today's agenda, whether you folks have hired a climate equity person on your staff. I know that you were hiring, but I thought it might be pertinent to have that person in the discussion today.
Yeah, no, great question. It was a statement at the end of the folks that we have welcomed. I mentioned we are currently evaluating candidate material for the climate equity position. Thank you.
That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Islam.
Matt, thank you again for all the continued great work from your team and the office. Always impressed, and congrats on all the awards. I do want to bring up one point. I would totally welcome hearing more about the office's sort of ideas between the IRA and how that can be implemented in sort of a joint collaboration. I do agree this is the most progressive climate forward bill that our federal government has ever issued. So we need to sort of tap on it really quickly and make that actionable throughout our communities. So welcome to the conversation.
Great idea, Commissioner Islam. I'm also very interested in maybe putting a summary of the IRA on our next agenda so that we can more broadly understand what it means for City and County of Honolulu. And Vice Chair Keener, do you have any comments?
Yeah, again, thank you, Matt. Great update. And I wanted to dig in a bit deeper on the One Water climate adaptation policy work that's been done, and again, more about implementation. I was following, all of the One Water work as the bill went through, and the different kind of frameworks being raised to facilitate some of that cross-departmental collaboration and work around water management. And I was wondering, kind of from a practical point of view, has the One Water, are they called the One Water meeting group or working group or something? And are they meeting, and what kinds of things are on their agenda so far? Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's a great, maybe in the future we could have a more substantive explanation. Also, it's one of the things that we're obligated to report annually. So certainly we'll be working on the calendar year 2022 report, early into the annual sustainability report effort. A lot of that, so to your question, Commissioner Vice Chair Keener, we meet almost monthly per the ordinance. There's a One Water panel that calls upon 8 agencies, although usually there is an additional 9th agency that participates, and that's the Department of Budget and Fiscal Services. So the 8 agencies are our office, Board of Water Supply, Environmental Services, Facility Maintenance, Transportation Services, Parks and Recreation, Planning and Permitting, and the Department of Design and Construction. Hopefully that was 8. And really we've been focusing on project coordination. It's every time of year is some period in the budget cycle. So right now we're trying to find opportunities to plus up specific projects to make them a little bit more integrated in line with the principles in the ordinance, but also finding ways to coordinate and advocate for project proposals in the next budget cycle. There's also an in-development working group focused on policy. So project implementation, policy efforts, and really just trying to not overextend ourselves and ensure that we're being effective in fewer things versus spreading ourselves too thin, because it is all of those agencies now trying to really just streamline our efforts and have more group discussions. It's already proved beneficial, one, just more employees meeting each other, quite frankly, has expanded the awareness and opportunities to really integrate thinking about infrastructure for tomorrow and the changes that will affect them with respect to water, either sea level rise, too much rain, not enough rain, and everything in between. But I think we'd be happy to provide, probably again in the new year, a more detailed explanation about what's been done to date and where we see ourselves going next.
Thanks, Matt. Could I also ask if is there a city webpage for the One Water panel?
There is.
Or...
It's quite light at this point, but that's
Okay.
where we hope to continue to build out. But I can share that for the meeting minutes.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Gonzer. And I also want to thank Commissioner Otsuka for suggesting Asia Yuri, EPA Region 9, to potentially talk about IRA opportunities for the next meeting. I've noted that. And I also am noting that it would be really interesting to potentially have someone from One Water come and give an update. And I'll talk to you, Director Gonzer, about when that might be an appropriate meeting or time to include that in. Okay, at this time, if there is any testimony or comments from the public on this particular agenda item, we're happy to hear that now. Again, it's 3 minutes per testimony per person. Okay, seeing none, we will be moving on to the next agenda item, which is discussion and action on current commissioners to an equity pledge. And I am dropping in the chat a link to the climate change and social equity guidance document. The section that we are referring to is section 1.3, climate change towards Commission's pledge towards equity, Climate Change Commission's pledge towards equity. At this time, I'm going to ask Vice Chair Keener to assist me in discussion of this topic, as she was the main lead for this guidance document. So Vicki, can you please maybe discuss the pledge, its origin and intent, and maybe we can move forward with some action if appropriate.
Yeah, thank you, Rosie. So something that we wanted to do with this climate change and social equity guidance document and the pledge that was developed as part of it was bring it up for discussion with, since we have 3 new members on the commission who weren't directly involved in the social equity guidance document, to talk about some of the findings, the process, and bring up the idea of renewing the pledge with new membership on the commission and talking about how to better affect that. So the original document was adopted in December of 2020, and it was recently updated in July of 2022 with some additional, more inclusive language. And really what we wanted to do was build on some of the work that CCSR was already doing in terms of climate adaptation and mitigation with reference to social equity in our communities and organizations across the island. So some of that was defining a lot of definitions, both on a state level, looking at the different structures that were available, and zooming in, looking at case studies from around both the nation and the world, and looking at some best practices and seeing what would be relevant to making recommendations at the city scale. So some of those key recommendations were to center equity in all climate change adaptation and mitigation plans going forward, to identify frontline communities, experiencing chronic or climate or socioeconomic stressors that could worsen the impact of climate-induced shocks, to review the Oahu resilience strategy to determine areas that could include additional equity components and help integrate those, to collaborate with communities to share resources and information about climate risks and abilities to respond, and to focus on outreach to underserved communities through expanding accessibility of the information, both produced by the commission and by the city in respect to climate change, adaptation and mitigation. And of course, as soon as this happened and we passed this, we went into purely virtual meetings with the pandemic. And so some of our plans with the equity pledge were stymied a little bit. We weren't able to move around the island like we wanted to hear from different groups of people and community members because of the virtual nature of the meetings. But at the same time, I think that the virtual meetings did allow a wider set of participants to attend some of these meetings. And so, you know, I think we got more people throughout the pandemic in the virtual rooms sometimes than a lot of our in-person meetings when they were down at the center of the city. So I think that everybody, the commissioners have the equity pledge up or should be able to access it. So the pledge, I'll just read the 3 bullet points so we can discuss them here. Host the commission's in-person meetings in different areas of the island of Oahu so that a diversity of communities can participate in the planning process for their communities, and to invite leaders of minoritized communities to participate. To integrate social equity considerations as defined by the Urban Sustainability's Director's Initiative report into all its publication and policies, and provide diverse platforms and opportunities such as virtual and in-person meetings, focus groups, surveys, field trips, and presentations to prioritize communities and groups that have historically been marginalized or underrepresented. And just as a side, I would like to say that Rosie and I were both very impressed with the coordination, the community coordination to come in and testify this morning around the aviation industry and greenhouse gas emissions. So this is exactly the type of thing that we want to see and get from other groups across the island to be able to prioritize some of the work that we're able to do. So with that, I'll just open up discussion for the equity pledge with the commissioners, or if there are any comments.
Thank you so much, Vicki. I see that Commissioner Otsuka's hand is raised, so we'll start with her.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Keener. I just had a couple of questions and comments. First being, can you give me some clarity on how the pledge is supposed to be connected to the equity guidance document?
Sure. So the guidance document really looked at a wider breadth of kind of climate adaptation and mitigation plans, and how other cities, counties, countries were incorporating social equity into their planning. And with that in mind, we were able to shape the recommendations that were applicable, that we thought were applicable at the county and city scale. And so the pledge is really meant to enact some of the key recommendations and put them into practice at the commission scale. So for example, focusing on additional outreach through expanding accessibility, whether that's by going to different places around the island, having meetings at different times of day, different times of days of the week, whether that's in all of the guidance documents that we do, considering how equity can play into that, and making that a part of both the stakeholder process and the drafting of the documents. So those are kind of the main ways. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's really helpful. I'm just trying to understand how we pull from the recommendations for the commission from that document. So that's really helpful. Chair, are you okay if I just give a couple of comments and you can stop me at any?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay,
discussion
great.
at this point is important, and even if we want to, alter some of the wording of the draft pledge that we have, that is totally open. Yes, for sure.
So I think my first big recommendation would be, I'd love to see the pledge move from sort of passive language to more active language. So for example, the way that the pledge is currently written, it sounds like people were born vulnerable And please, I can explain what that means if people are not sort of catching that. But I'd love for us to sort of acknowledge that these folks are not born vulnerable, but rather chronically exploited by really conscious decisions made by our government to either underinvest in communities or invest in things that were really negatively impacting these communities. So I think a lot about how we built highways that either destroyed or cut communities in half. So that's an example of some sort of like you see that as a positive, but we're putting money into this community, but actually it's a really negative investment. So I'd love to see the pledge be sort of particular that sentence around who is vulnerable and why, to change the word vulnerable to chronically exploited. Would be my first sort of bigger recommendation. And then in terms of sort of the more solid things that we're committing to, this would take a lot of work from the Climate Commission office, so please chime in and tell me what is and isn't possible. I'd like us to consider translating our meeting materials and at least the executive summaries of a lot of our big work products into different languages. So the top 5 languages spoken in Hawaii are Tagalog, Ilocano, Spanish, Hawaiian, and Japanese. But I would love for like the new climate person, or sorry, the equity person you hire, Matt, to make a better recommendation to us. So is it better that we are choosing languages, maybe not the top 5 spoken, but the folks who are maybe most impacted by climate change? For example, like Chuukese isn't on there. So something for us to consider, like if we want to translate some of our meeting materials, which languages? So just the thought there. And then the recommendation on having our meetings in communities, I really like that. I think that's really great. I think I would specifically ask that the locations that we choose be transit accessible. So what that can translate to, and I'm open to the commission's recommendations, or public has a recommendation, maybe it can be a quarter mile within a bus stop, for example, could be what transit accessible means. And then sort of best practice now for community planning meetings is that, and again, this is a resource issue, that we provide childcare. And that we provide some sort of incentive and compensating people for their time. So those are my major recommendations. I'm happy to answer questions or provide any more information. Thank you.
Those are wonderful comments. Commissioner Otsuka, I hope you have taken notes because I'm furiously trying to get that down right now at this moment.
I have it written down also. I just took some notes before our meeting,
Perfect.
So share that.
Perfect. Please.
Can I respond to one comment from
Yes.
that, Rosie? Thanks, Kiana. That was those were excellent, excellent comments and suggestions. And I did just want to point you to the section of the guidance document, both 3.1 and 3.2, which is titled Indigenous Pacific Island Communities are disproportionately impacted by climate change due to historical governance structures. And a lot of that section is really about what you were talking about in your first point with how we define vulnerable communities, and really noting that in many cases, or in all cases, vulnerability in terms of how we're looking at these communities has been, part and parcel of how historical structures have been enforced on a lot of different communities. So recognizing that communities have been made vulnerable through a lot of things outside of their control in many cases. And so there were a couple sections in the guidance document that attempt to lay that out on paper. And I definitely want them to be, the commission pledge towards equity, as you noted in your first comment, should be in the context of the entire recommendations of the entire document. So I would hope that that is included in there, but I do acknowledge that there are words that we could change to make that clear in the actual pledge. And we'll talk to you about that.
I had just one more comment I realized I forgot. I know that Dr. Kaufman was working on the Social Climate Vulnerability Index, so I thought that might be a good, more localized context we could consider our chronically exploited communities, in addition to the communities already listed in the guidance document. I don't know where that is actually. I think they're looking for some money to sort of get it all on a map, but something for us to consider.
That's a great point. I would like to ask if any of the other commissioners have comments on this pledge. I'm going to start with Commissioner Romine.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. A few thoughts. First of all, I'm really glad to see this coming together, including the guidance document and now this pledge. Equitable engagement is something that I'm really focused in my work with Hawaii Sea Grant, improving our engagement with communities. So really glad to see this coming together, and the guidance document that predates this pledge. One thought that comes to mind is how we're defining frontline communities. And what comes to mind for me in my work with coastal hazards and sea level rise impacts, the first thing that may come to mind for a lot of folks and thinking about a frontline community in that is homes on the shoreline, and maybe the roads as well. But what I really want to make sure we're recognizing is the impacts to user groups, to those resources that are being lost along our shoreline, as our beaches, for example, other resources, wetlands may and are getting pinched off by sea level rise. So that we expand our thinking certainly beyond just the immediate residents that are being impacted by that when we're considering frontline communities. And I need to go back and reread the guidance document in light of that and just make sure, that's covered, but I think it's something we should keep in mind. I did have a question in regards to the pledge here, the third bullet. I'm just wondering, what is our ability, kind of based on our charter for this commission, to conduct activities beyond these formal meetings, things that are mentioned in there, such as focus groups, field trips. Has the commission done that, and are we able to do that? I think it's a really nice idea, but I'd like to know what our capacity and ability is to do that. Thank you.
Commissioner Keener, Vice Chair Keener can comment, and then if we need to have a reminder, we can have Courtney come back and remind us of some of those involving sunshine law. And but I think Vicki, you can speak to that pretty clearly.
Yeah, no, that's a great comment, Brad. And so part of what we're going to do later in this meeting, I think, is clarify some of that with some kind of process and guidance that Rosie and I had been working on, where we wanted to really lay out the actual process for developing a guidance document, from very technical, like how it should be laid out and how to present key findings, short, relevant key findings up front, to things like how many rounds of stakeholder input do we need to do, what should those look like. And I'll just also note that anything that we do is completely on us. So we have the ability to, for example, in the documents that I've worked on, to hold focus groups, to do detailed interviews with community members, experts, different organizations and stakeholders, to get input. But really, that's all up to us. And for some of these guidance documents in the past, I've been scrounging around to get people to volunteer their time, resources. I just kind of want to emphasize that everything that we do, we are responsible for in some ways in terms of the equity. So it's all up to us to make these processes as inclusive as we can. I don't know if that directly answers your question, but.
It does. Thank you.
I see that Commissioner Otsuka has raised their hand again. Can you hold off a bit? I just wanted to see if Commissioner Islam had any comments briefly.
Thanks, Chair. Just thinking about what else I could add, I sort of just echo the comments that Commissioner Otsuka and Commissioner Romine provided. I love that we're sort of we're committing to this and sort of being a commissioner now after a year, it's nice to sort of see this come forward. I do just have one structural question, actually two structural questions. Do we foresee some of these in-person meetings still being hybrid to allow for sort of digital access? And then secondly, I'm really for sort of showing examples and making things actionable. And then sort of working within our confines of the charter, thinking about how we can kind of partner with other organizations to really expand, I think, on this field trip aspect. I think it really helps to sort of connect the guidance that we're going to provide or talk about the things that are sort of happening on the ground in the field. So maybe later on in the meeting, if you talk about maybe how structurally that could happen, it's something I'd like to just sort of think about as the commission evolves.
Thank you, Melanie. As you know, our commission is 5 people, and so in order to remain in compliance with Sunshine, and Courtney, please just pop on if I say anything wrong. We cannot have more than 2 commissioners meet at any one time to discuss commission related business. And so as far as the field trips, the way that we would have to do it is it would be no more than 2 commissioners, and then they would come back to the commission and kind of report out on some. So we have had that happen before, where commissioners have gone on what we call field learning aspects in the field. With regard to the hybrid nature of meetings, I believe either Courtney or Matt can talk about that. It's definitely logistics, and we do have to provide. If we have an online meeting, we have to provide an in-person option, and those are just us, conforming to Sunshine. I see Courtney has popped up. I know that Kiana, you have more to say. I just want to have Courtney chime in right here.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner, or Chair. And I don't really have anything to add. I think you've summarized things nicely. So,
thank you so much. Okay. Melanie, I think that summarized all of your comments. I'm going to go back to Kiana and Commissioner Otsuka and see if she has what else she has to add.
Just quickly, I was gonna volunteer to help organize a walking tour for all of you on like transportation inequities. So that's all.
That sounds great. So because of this really rich discussion, and I note that Henry Curtis put in the chat that we can schedule an official 5-member public visit as other agencies do, as long as the public can also attend. Yes, that is also correct. Thank you, Henry, for that. And that is definitely within the realm of possibility, I think. Commissioner Otsuka, did you have anything else to add with regard to that? Okay, great. I wanted to see if there was any testimony or comments from the public at this time on this equity pledge. And seeing none other than Henry Curtis's comments, what I wanted to say is I think that Commissioner Otsuka's comments are actually substantive, and we should take the time to include them in this pledge. And I wanted to just ask Commissioner Otsuka if you would take a hand in maybe adding in some of those comments. We can provide you with, OCCSR can provide you with the Word document version of this. And then we will just kind of table the vote right now and bring that back at the next meeting, if that sounds good for everybody. Okay, thank you so much. At this time, we're going to move on to, I think you can see that this meeting is very much about making very clear and transparent our processes in order to increase equity and the ability of the public and the diverse voices to come to the table. So at this time, we're going to move into the next item, which is discussion on possible amendments to our rules of order to include some standard operating procedures for developing guidance documents. I'm going to be sharing my screen because I do have just a short slideshow to kind of show you. It's very, very short. And I also want to invite Vice Chair Keener to chime in if there's anything that I'm missing as we go along with this. So bear with me as I pray for technology to work. Okay, can you all see my screen with the slideshow? Excellent. Okay, we're going to proceed forward. So Because we have very much been working towards increasing equity around this and wanting to increase the voices, we thought it would be very much advantageous for us to kind of develop a process for how we develop these guidance documents. And we broke it up into 3 basic steps. The first is conceptualization or motivation, like where do these ideas come from? And of course, we envision at least three ways. The first is that one or more commissioners might identify an area of critical interest or need. For example, the heat guidance document, the urban heat guidance document, was something that former Chair Fletcher thought was of really important interest. Or perhaps there is a request from a city entity. We've had a number of requests that have guided that information, and certainly in the previous administration, or very strong community feedback, which we saw being very healthily exercised today. And these are really where we get the motivation for where our topics come from. But we wanted to lay that out as these are generally what we see as being what guides this commission for the writing of new guidance documents. Then, of course, the process is that we identify content matter experts who are able to, the mechanism is testimony, but its function is to educate the commission and the public on the topic. For that, we invite the commissioners as well as the public to work with OCCSR to develop a list of who those are so we can solicit them and invite them to a meeting. We agendize this potential topic of interest to introduce the meeting during the idea during public meeting, and we of course invite the public to comment on and what we are talking about and the experts to testify. Then what we have been doing in the past, and we wanted to formalize it a little bit more, is that we have 2 commissioners, again this is in compliance with Sunshine, should be assigned to each brief initially, with having one as being the main lead. They will draft the initial brief with graduate research assistance support. That's what GRA is. And I will come back to GRA responsibilities in a few slides. They will draft the initial brief, and then in a public meeting, we will prepare and transfer that document to the rest of the commissioners. So in that second meeting then, which is the first time we see a draft, we'll provide a summary and then transfer responsibilities so that other commissioners can then formally edit and provide feedback onto that topic. Vicky, all good? Okay. And then this piece, which was not as well articulated, but which Vicky and I are really, really very much committed to, is engagement process. And this should be ongoing with the conceptualization and the editorial processes. Of course, we see that we can collect initial input in public meeting through agendizing it. But then we also see that depending on the topic, we may need to engage in a couple of different styles for community feedback. One is a much more kind of what we might classically think of as academic. That would be asking individual content matter experts to review. They might be approached to comment on the draft of it. And then the other would be, I think, more what Commissioner Otsuka and certainly Commissioner Romine has expertise in this, having more, we just called it workshop, we can call it another word, where we kind of bring together groups of the public, stakeholders, and other such people to present the overview of our key findings and ask in these kind of more small focus group settings, what is missing and whose voices are we missing? And then of course there's the editorial process of like, when the rubber meets the road, what is that piece of paper gonna look like? In the black box, Vicky and I have taken our time to go through previous guidance documents and pull out the format. And the reason why we want to have a consistent format is because we believe that if we have a consistent format, it will be easiest for both the public as well as decision makers to quickly identify the key components of what we are trying to transmit. So we will always have a purpose section. We will then have a recommendations and key findings right at the top. We will strive to have it be jargon free with short policy relevant recommendations. And a key to this is that these must be locally relevant, preferably actionable. We'll then have a table of contents, and then a lot of, the research and the citations to support those recommendations will come in what we call an introduction, which will be a broad assessment, as well as local contextualization of the issue. And then we'll present case studies and findings from other cities, other entities that are of relevant scale and size to this commission and the City and County of Honolulu. We will identify future research needs. We will summarize the engagement process that we went through so that it is transparent to the commission as well as the public, who we spoke with, who provided us with feedback. And of course, a conclusion, we will acknowledge all the reviewers, all the stakeholder organizations, any graduate research assistance that we had in this, and then of course, any additional appendices and references. And then in the editorial process, because these are documents which will be in the public realm, we just want to exercise really strong research writing practices, including rigorous judgment about citation, independent work, avoiding plagiarism, especially because our documents are considered public government documents. We have to be very careful about either getting permission if we're going to borrow a figure, or we need to adapt or a figure for our own purposes. And and that's pretty much it. Vicky, did you have anything to add at this time?
No, that was great, Rosie. And just for the rest of the commissioners, just edification, I guess, we were recognizing that there are a couple new commissioners. We were trying to, in addition to making it easier for the city and agencies and the mayor to follow in a streamlined way, but also for new commissioners to kind of be able to have some guidance with what's come before in terms of what might be helpful in terms of a commission guidance document, and something to follow if you start taking the lead on writing one of these.
Right. And then a couple times in this meeting, we've talked about graduate research assistants, and we are able to have graduate research assistants who are really vital in that initial research process. After I finish going through these bullet points, I'll ask Vice Chair Keener to explain a little bit more about who they are. And so at this term, right now, the commission chair myself will be delegating research duties to work with the commissioners on those briefs as appropriate. And our graduate research assistants are the ones who really help to maintain continuity of the drafts as they shift to the different commissioners. They will synthesize the comments and edits into the brief, and we will also have them assist in the engagement and feedback process, because as Vicky said, it's all on us, and if we don't have the budget or the manpower, the capacity, the graduate research assistants can certainly assist in having that happen. So I'm going to stop share at this point. And
can I just comment on that really quickly, Rosie, that the
Yes.
graduate research assistants are also on us and our budgets personally. So, and we have to figure out ways to supplement our capacity and have that ability to do that background research for the commission. So in the past, we've had graduate research assistants, usually finagled by the chair and the vice chair of the commission through UH, and I've gotten interns from the East-West Center before. So just as consideration, these aren't from the city. These are people we're finding to help and paying them to assist with research.
Thanks so much for that clarification. So at this time, I wanted to see if any of the other commissioners had comments on just kind of our thinking around how we can make more clear and transparent the processes around guidance documents. I know for me, when I was a new commissioner, I was like, I don't even know where these they just come up on the agenda and I edit them. And so as I become more senior and taken more of a leadership role on the commission, I really wanted to clarify these processes for other new commissioners. So Commissioner Islam, do you have any comments on this thinking? And then, I do see that Commissioner Romine and Otsuka have comments for sure.
I do. Rosie, this is super helpful because I was that new commissioner. Like, these papers just come about. So it's very helpful, particularly coming from a profession where we don't heavily write academic papers on a daily. So this is really helpful. I have two questions. I was sort of thinking about this moving forward of how to do maybe more shorter sprints so we can have maybe more rapid information come to the commission. I'd like to know sort of how this maybe structure could be a bridge to support that. And then secondly, for the grad assistants, I really appreciate you giving background on this role. I have a structural question. If I want to understand how that is financially supported, and what those responsibilities particularly extend to other commissioners, and the budgets that are being used and sort of the allocation, just sort of thinking from our firm structure, if that could be supported financially as well within our sort of institution, or if there's other ways to look at getting, I'm just going to use the word VISTA because I don't know anything else or other structures that exist, but getting other individuals that are interested in this topic to support in sort of a research, assistance basis. So.
Thanks. Vicky, Vice Chair Keener, would you like to comment on the funding structure?
Yeah, and again, this is, this isn't set in stone because it's however we can, wrangle assistance. And so in the past, it's been through research grants, through foundations. In my case, it's been research grants through different agencies at both federal and state levels. Specifically, I've been able to advertise within the grants that I have for kind of a research assistant that marries that translation of scientific research to policy. So people that are working within that bridge, and that's very conducive into the grants that I have. So I've been able to fold in internships and research support for students and interns. But I don't think that looking within more business structures to have additional, I don't even know what it would be called for you, Melanie, like a research assistant, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, research, and it's been on the top of my mind actually for a couple of months. So I just want to sort of understand really how we can support this or what that evolution, what it looks like, right? Sort of outside of the academic realm.
Yeah, and again, I am not outside of the academic realm, so I think it's opening up that to you and looking for structures that could help support this. This is by no means exhaustive. It's just what we've been able to work in the past at where we are. So adding to that capacity would be great.
Cool.
Thank you, Commissioner Islam. Commissioner Bromine, and then we'll do Commissioner Otsuka.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I just want to echo Councilmember Islam's comments about how helpful this is. Having this outline, this framework, I think will be really, really helpful going ahead with new guidance documents. I have, but one more comment than a question. Comes to mind that we may be able to utilize some of University of Hawaii Sea Grants fellowship programs in the future. I see Rosie nodding, to bring in some help with this. So keep that in mind and you can approach either of us if you have ideas on that. And then I was wondering if we have any graduate research assistants available to us at this time, and what their subject matter expertise might be, or if we'd be looking to recruit all new folks this time. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Romine. We have support for the available funds and support to support 2 graduate research assistants, one through East West Center through Vice Chair Keener, and thankfully, Dr. McKenna Kaufman has also generously been able to find funds for another GRE. So that's going to be unusual. We have 2. As far as whether or not they're currently filled, Vice Chair Keener, can you remind me on the status of that?
Yeah, so I think we should check back in with McKenna and see what exactly the status is. I've heard things, but none of it is official. So we should check back in with her. And as for the one being funded through my grants at East West Center, we're identifying some potential folks right now. So there's no one officially hired yet.
And what topics would they be working on? Has that been determined?
No, so and part of this is the process document that Rosie was just presenting on, and we have kind of a more a longer form version of this in a Google Doc that we've been working on as well. But you know, the method by which those research assistants would be, you know, both the duties they would have and what they wouldn't have, we wouldn't be asking them to do, and then the types of things that we would be, and how that would be managed mostly through the chair. So it would be if if we come to a place where we have a guidance document that we've agreed to work on, and it would make sense for research assistant then to be on it, then the person in charge leading that guidance document would ask the chair for some time of the research assistant, and it would kind of be managed at the chair level, I think. Isn't that what we decided, Rosie?
Yes, that's correct. And that's how informally we did it before. We just wanted to make it clear because it's just good practice, you know, as far as managing expectations for the graduate research assistant, as well as making sure we're fully utilizing our capacity on the Climate Change Commission. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that additional information.
Yeah. Commissioner Otsuka.
Yeah, I just wanted to also echo everybody's comments. This was really helpful, Rosie, especially for my first meeting to sort of understand what we're aiming to do. So that structure is really helpful. Thank you. And then in addition to that, I just wanted to state that I'll have a full-time Vista that could help me with commission work also, that I share sort of with my branch. And then I also help to manage the state climate commission's vistas too. So I get them 1 day a week and I have 8. So I have lots of help. These folks are typically fresh out of undergraduate, so certainly not graduate research assistants, but I've had really great experiences with all of my vistas, helping with lots of research for different projects I have. So something to consider if we don't have enough graduate research assistant help is I have these vistas, or we'll have these new vistas in the new year available.
That's wonderful. That would be great. At this time, is there any comments or feedback from the public in the form of testimony? Okay, seeing that no one has raised their hand or put anything in the chat, can I potentially get a motion to draft amendments to the rules of order so that we can more formalize what Vicki and I presented on?
So move.
Is there a second?
This is Melanie, I second.
Thank you. So what I propose then is that Vice Chair Keener and I will take a stab at drafting amendments to the rule of order that really kind of clarify this, and then we'll bring that back to a future commission meeting. Great. Okay, so on to the next topic, point number 9, which is discussion on the current process and potential next guidance documents. I know that originally we had taken a bunch of testimony up at point number, I believe it was point number 5. I just wanted to provide a brief overview of the current guidance documents that the commission is working on. The first is the heat guidance document, and the second is our update to the climate change guidance document. So I'm going to start with the update to the climate change guidance document. Currently, it is sitting with myself and Commissioner Keener. This guidance document is the first guidance document that we ever worked on as a commission, and we periodically make updates to it based on just the best science of the time. So I wanted to suggest, oh yeah, sorry, Vice Chair Keener, did you have anything you wanted to comment on it? I saw you come off.
Oh no, I just wanted to clarify the kind of the purpose of the climate brief for the new commissioners,
Yes.
which is just to summarize the kind of state of the knowledge on climate science, impacts for different sectors, for specifically the island of Oahu, the city and county of Hawaii, of Honolulu, excuse me.
Yes, and so this is a guidance document that all of us as commissioners will have a chance to review. At this time, I'm looking to transfer kind of like responsibility and authorship from myself to one of the new commissioners to start taking a stab at it. Given Commissioner Romine's testimony at the July 29th meeting, I wanted to request Commissioner Romine if you might be willing to start to kind of work on the updates to this climate change guidance with Vice Chair Keener.
I would be. Thanks for that opportunity. I do have a question about timing. We had the 6th IPCC assessment report come out in 2021. We're awaiting a 5th national climate assessment. I forget the exact timing on that. Is it this fall or winter? Victoria,
fall of 2023.
Okay, it's a ways off.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm an author on it, so I have all of the information that we can pull from.
Okay, that's great. So all that considered, do we feel like it's a good time to move ahead with an update? It sounds like it is, but any concerns or issues with that?
I think that we're overdue for an update, so yeah. I would say yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Director Gonzer, you have your hand raised. Did you want to comment on this particular guidance document?
Yeah, it was just a note on the distinction. So, to the commission's discretion, this original one was a brief. There is no section specific to recommendations. A lot of the thematic other subsequent recommendations do come from the 2018 brief. They reference it. So just with respect to the process that you just went through and the table of contents or structure, this may be one that is just different, or you may want to consider some other additional sections.
Thank you, Matt. Yes, so he's precisely right. This is kind of like where we put a lot of our basic science in that we reference the other documents on. And so we do want to kind of update it, particularly, as you said, Commissioner Romine, because the 6th IPCC report came out, and because, as you noted, Vice Chair Keener is taking a strong lead on the 5th NCA. So we do have a lot of information that we can utilize. So with that in mind, and again, just reminding everybody that we're all going to have a chance to work on it. We'll all be wrangled in. Sorry, Director Gonzer.
Yep, I also just wanted to reconfirm, because it might be new information for the new commissioners. At the time that this climate change brief and the first Seal of Rise guidance document came out, shortly thereafter in 2018, a mayor's directive 18-2 was issued, which explicitly references that agencies must use the climate change brief and the Seal of Rise guidance documents, or when next versions become available and are updated, for our work. So again, we just greatly appreciate the leadership from the commission. And once these things get updated, they become part and parcel of how we re-communicate, re-educate, train up, and use the most relevant information moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much for even contextualizing that even further and the importance of this work. So just to finalize this discussion on the climate change brief, the authors of that will be Victoria Keener and Brad Romine, Commissioners Keener and Commissioners Romine. And then of course, you guys will do your edits, come back to another meeting, and we will pass it on to more people to edit and comment on. And then I anticipate in hopefully 2-ish commission meetings, we will be able to adopt the updated brief. So that's kind of how it's going to work, is we kind of pass it on. All right, so the other guidance document that we have that we're currently working on is it's kind of changed its name. It was originally called the HEAT. I believe it's now the Urban Heat Guidance Document. The items from the previous commission meeting, you can see the minutes from the July 27th, is we did want to have a discussion about bringing in community engagement and feedback prior to adoption. And so I wanted to open that up for a little bit of discussion with other commissioners as far as what might be needed. It is currently sitting, mostly because of commissioners stepping off, it is currently sitting with Vice Chair Keener and myself.
Maybe I can just make one comment, Rosie, that in terms of the stakeholder engagement that has gone into the existing urban heat guidance document, there really hasn't been much. So I would suggest that we talk about, that whomever is willing to take this on and lead the development of this part would be willing to kind of step into and lead a more thorough engagement process.
Yes, so at this time, oh yeah, yes, Commissioner Otsuka.
Oh, I was going to volunteer myself to co-lead this effort. I think I'm not super involved with urban heat island effect things, but certainly like transportation facilities. And I'm also part of a number of groups, not leading it, but helping with sort of green infrastructure and tree planting efforts. So I'd be happy to co-lead this with another commissioner.
That's excellent. We totally welcome you volunteering. In addition, you will then also have the opportunity to edit it if we transfer it over. Commissioner Islam, I see that you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of add to the conversation about stakeholders. So there's a heavy section. I think I had at the time given former Chair Fletcher some thoughts on the design relation. So I do think there needs to be stakeholder outreach to the industry because this will have a direct overlay to their work. But I think the real meat of this can talk about adaptation strategies because that's really what the community needs guidance on for Hawaii specific risks and challenges. So I'm happy to help to facilitate those stakeholder engagements with the industry, make those connections, as well as provide some input on those related sections as well too. So.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for stepping forward, Commissioner Islam. So we are now going to be, oh yeah, sorry, Commissioner Romine.
Thank you. Sorry if I overlooked something, but I'm not sure this draft guidance document's been made available to me. Can I receive it at this stage and have a look at it? Again, sorry if I missed that in an email somewhere or elsewhere.
Yeah, there should be, sorry, I don't have that email from the, with all of the attachments open right now, but everyone should be able to have access to the last version that was made public at the last meeting where ownership was transferred over to Rosie and myself. So
there's a
maybe,
link in the agenda for that.
I don't have it either, Brad. So I think, yeah, maybe
okay,
list, but I'd be happy to read it also.
Yeah. Director Gonzer, perhaps you can enlighten us how we can transfer some of those documents.
Certainly, and in support of the draft equity pledge, the revisions and edits to the rules of order, will provide follow-up communication to all commissioners with the resources needed to act on what's discussed today.
Excellent. And so just to clarify, the authors of this guidance document are now going to be Commissioner Kiana Otsuka and Commissioner Melanie Islam. After it sounds like you two will engage with one another to plan for some community engagement, or sorry, stakeholder feedback. And do want to recognize that Commissioner Romine has not yet had a chance to comment on it and may have some input. And so we will likely agendize this at a future meeting just so we can get updates and see how that is all progressing and if there's any other action we have to take on that. Okay, and I also note that Commissioner Otsuka said in the chat that when we do talk about this topic in more depth, Heather McMillan's Forestry Service just put out a great map that shows where we're missing tree canopies. Commissioner Otsuka, if you wish, please feel free to add that data to the to the guidance document. If that is something, you'll find it is probably lower down at the end. So comments from the public, comments or testimony from the public on the two guidance documents, which is the climate change brief, I should say, and the urban heat guidance brief. Okay, seeing no hands raised or requests in the chat, we will move on to item 10, which is discussion on further extension and engagement on adopted commission guidance documents. As we have brought up a couple of times, this commission has authored approximately 8 guidance documents, and we had specifically been thinking about how best to increase engagement on, in particular, the social equity guidance document, the sea level rise guidance, because it has been updated, as well as potentially the guidance document on reducing greenhouse gases from building emissions. I want to note that those 3 also all need to be communicated to mayor. We have not done that yet. We just basically send a formal letter. This is kind of more for point of information for our new commissioners. When we adopt a guidance document, we write a cover letter and then send that forward to the mayor to formally say, here you go, please use this as you see fit. So at this time, I'm going to ask Director Gonzer to perhaps comment on ideas for how we can further engage the public and provide more information regarding these new guidance documents.
Thank you, Chair. And just certainly on that last point, our apologies. And for the public's awareness, we as an office, to Corporation Council's point earlier, we convene and facilitate the commission. There's no one staff person that's assigned for any particular role. It's a shared responsibility across a lot.
Uh-oh. Director Gonzer, are you there? Matt? Oh no. Hello? Okay, now we can't hear you, but we can see you. Uh-oh. Okay. Director Gonzer. We will come back to you. I'll say what is the status of the climate change conduction? Okay, so we will work to get it back. Okay, so from the public, we have a question from Walter Billingsley, DDC. What is the status of the climate change and construction industry white paper? So the title of that white paper, Mr. Billingsley, is Reducing Greenhouse Gas from Building Emissions. It was adopted formally at the last meeting, and we are in the process of communicating it to mayor. And this is the issue right now. This is the agenda item at this moment that we are discussing further community engagement. Okay. Seeing as how we might have lost Director Gonzer's audio. Oh, yay. Okay, there you go. Carry on.
Apologies, I don't really know what we were discussing. Socializing the wealth of resources that you have all churned out and provided to us. Certainly just getting the outputs is not the end of the work, right? There's the need to do a little bit more on the communication thereof. It's always a lot of great information. It's never, we're rarely able to just the next day immediately implement a recommendation or a practice. Certainly within CCSR, we have a role and responsibility to communicate the information out and facilitate agencies in accessing that information. A lot of it is being incorporated into a whole variety of work that perhaps we're just not really talking about so publicly or in these commission meetings, right? We have this Climate Ready Oahu project underway. We're programmatically thinking about just our own practices, whether it's Complete Streets or how Parks is doing outreach engagement and working with community members on trees. Like all of the info is being deployed in certain aspects, but there probably is a little bit more that we could do in terms of sharing out that information. The structuring that you're all envisioning is helpful, right? We can train ourselves into really keying in on the the recommendations up front and any subsequent documents moving forward. Maybe there are other info or fact sheets that we can, as an office, facilitate. Not to assume that anyone wouldn't read the recommendations, but there's many ways to communicate information, and that's something that we would be happy to think through and potentially do, because we want to communicate out all the recommendations and the science as well, and we have office tools and resources to do that. And then maybe just again a soft point, we do talk about them internally, and we do try to incorporate it into the work. Maybe it's just hard on the back end of any of those efforts to point directly to like XYZ. But again, a direct relationship to one of the recommendations, one of the guidance documents, is bills 41 and 42 that are currently at City Council, thinking about the city's practices around shoreline setbacks and special management area. So that's a great direct correlation.
Thanks, Dr. Gonzer. Vice Chair Keener.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. That was helpful. And I just wanted to bring that up in relevance to, I think, a comment that Melanie made earlier about kind of the idea of, I think you called it a shorter sprint, Melanie, and getting more rapid information out. And so maybe there's a way to make that a more kind of rapid sprint output from the product or from the commission products that take those key recommendations or findings from the guidance document and make them into like a one-pager for distribution at CCSR events and available online for download and things like that are more kind of outward facing for community organization input.
Thanks for that. I do want to touch back and ask Commissioner Islam if this was kind of what she was thinking, or if there were more ideas that she had with regard to socializing some of our guidance documents in the public.
I think this is a great idea, Victoria, on just kind of making a one pager, just thinking about how people can absorb the information more rapidly. I do enjoy how CCSR uses social media to communicate what's going on. And perhaps we can think about that for the critical sort of guidance. I mean, they're all critical, but the ones that we want the community to know now, and think about how they can, be agents of change and act upon that, incorporate that into their work and their study. So that might be perhaps something that we can talk about, as the papers develop. But with regards to the short sprint, it was more like, I think probably in lines of now that I understand how the brief was set up, the climate brief, that's, I think, more in line of what I'm thinking short sprint. But yeah, open to discussing how we can kind of make this information useful to everyone. Sorry, one last piece. So just thinking about how we can kind of maybe communicate to mayor and council members is maybe to accompany with the papers is a short slide deck of the high points that they can kind of pass out to their staffers and that we can use as a presentation tool. So.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Islam. Director Gonzer, and then of course, Director Otsuka.
I was gonna take Commissioner Islam's suggestion one step further, and if there are slide materials being produced for presentation, that we request to get time at different subject matter committees. Certainly, Commissioner Otsuka and Romine most recently went through the process at Transportation, Sustainability, and Health and full City Council. Presumably, that's a committee that will exist in name again through the transition, or some version of those terms related to the commission's work. Again, there's just outlets additional to formal transmission to actually use other public forums to communicate that out, and we could always be a partner in the relaying of any of that information at committee meetings as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Otsuka.
Yeah, I just want to very quickly add that I think when we go to the public, we should be really clear as the commission, like what our objective is. I think sometimes government agencies go out to the public and whether it just be information sharing or maybe we're collecting input on something, I think we should be really clear on what it is we're doing and why, and explain that to those that we're engaging with. So I just want to very quickly add that.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Romine, do you have anything to add to our discussion?
Not at this time, thank you.
Great. So I think any discussion from the public as far as how we can better socialize the information we're putting out, please make yourself known at this time so you can give testimony. This is, of course, an evolving issue. We just are very much concerned with how we can continue to help inform the public and in a digestible way, in as broad a way as possible. So it's possibly maybe something that we bring up again, and potentially is something that we consider as we are making new guidance, as we are creating new guidance documents and producing them. Okay, so with that, I want to go to item 11, discussion on commission schedule and potential in-person meetings. We, as part of our equity pledge, and transition back to less pandemic conditions. I don't want to acknowledge that it's totally gone, but we have the possibility for more in-person meetings. We had identified, and I'm going to ask Director Gonzer to maybe speak a little bit about our upcoming schedule, or actually maybe I'll hold off since that's item number 13, but our potential for in-person meetings we had discussed coming up in the coming years, or coming months rather.
Yep, thank you, Chair. Again, we're here to facilitate the commission. Obviously, as I alluded to, it's a joint effort. We just want to ensure that we have advance notice as much as possible, so that we could think through all of the logistics to continue to support online virtual engagement while also ensuring a good experience at an in-person venue as desired and organized by the commission. Certainly that advance notice is even helpful for the community members of an area, if that is the intention and objective, to make it something that's of interest, relevance, and importance, to have it hosted in a different location. And we're here to support that and work through the thinking and the assets or capacities that may be needed to support that.
Great, thank you. So please do be looking forward to that. We are intending to have at least 2 in-person meetings, not likely before the end of the year, just given the time left, but we're aiming to have those happen in the first 6 months of next year. At least 2 of our commission meetings will be in person and out in the public. So look forward to that. At this time, we're going to move on to item number 12, which is public input for matters not on the agenda. And I want to give time for people to register their request to speak either by show of hands or in the chat. Okay, I want to recognize Mr. Mike Plowman. Please, welcome to the commission.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to address you guys. I put a link in the chat just in case I can't share my screen. If it's okay, I'd like to do so to speak about Bill 42, if that's okay.
I am not sure if you have the ability to share screen.
Maybe give it a try. I'm not sure if there's constraints. Let us know.
There. How about that?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, I'm a person committed to preservation and at full access to our shorelines here. And I live in Eva Beach, and I really want to support Bill 42. But in the recent committee meeting, I testified against it. And I testified against it specifically because of this landscaping language. Because as I look at this, especially number 2 there, where it says the landscaping or vegetation may not extend seaward of the shoreline as depicted on the current certified shoreline survey for the shoreline lot, or in the event there is no current certified shoreline survey for the lot seaward of the presumed shoreline. And so the way I read this is I look at our neighborhood, at all of these photos I took on the healthiest part of our shoreline. And I look at all of this and every bit of vegetation that is beyond anybody's shoreline here, the way I read the bill, would be outlawed and subject to $100,000 fine without the requirement for them to even give you a notice to correct something wrong. And of interest here is on the section of the Eva's shoreline between the beach park and empty lots, the surf break, for anybody that might be familiar. It kind of underwent a change when the reef runway was put in, and places that had no sand, that had all the seawalls, got buried in sand, and a lot of these seawalls are now fully buried in sand with a whole bunch of vegetation helping to protect and keep wave interaction from those seawalls. And so they're performing a good service. Now, I don't think what we're looking to do is to destroy families' lives and having them refinance their homes in order to pay a fine of $100,000. I think what we want to do is preserve the shoreline, preserve the shorelines and access. And the language presented, in my mind, doesn't tell these owners whether or not they're legal. I mean, if they take it literally, they all look like they would be in violation when we don't want to eradicate all of this vegetation. It is performing a good service to the extent that any of it might not be hindering access. And what you see in these pictures are many different examples. Some of you might say would be in violation. Some of you might say would not be, but I'll bet all of us couldn't come up with the same answers based on the language presented. And the other concern I have about the language here is that referring to Naupaka as a shoreline hardening barrier. Now, it's been a while since I took oceanography courses in the University of Hawaii system, but back then, and I recognize science changes, but back then we looked at vegetation as a soft approach to preserving a dune. And I don't know if that's something we're not teaching now, that we're teaching that things such as Naupaka are shoreline hardening barriers. And it's confusing to me. I can't find anything that says that online. Then again, I don't have the resources everybody else does, but I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about anything in this bill that would assess a $100,000 fine without mandatory warnings. And I think it just needs to define unequivocally what is and what is illegal, and perhaps an approach that more specifically addresses access and blocking access to the public with vegetation might be a better way to go. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Plowman. I'm going to recognize Commissioner Romine to respond.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Plowman. I just wanted to offer a little more information because I have some experience with this on the state side with the Department of Land and Natural Resources. I work really closely with their Office of Conservation and Coastal Lands, and I'm not certain, but I think this is an attempt to try to be consistent with existing state law that defines a beach transit corridor along and in front of these homes, and provides language against encroaching vegetation in particular that would block that alongshore access. So I think that's the intention here. I can't comment as to how that would be enforced at the county level. It's primarily been a state enforcement effort, and the state has enforced in certain locations, sending letters, for example, at Kahala, where there was kind of egregious encroaching vegetation there, and asked folks to cut things back, not immediately fining, but with threat of potential fines. So I just wanted to add that further background. I'm sorry I can't provide the exact statute that lives in, but you might want to do some more research. And if you want to reach out to me individually, I could help point you to that state statute if you find that helpful.
I recall State Bill 2020, and the language was more detailed with respect to outlawing vegetation that would impact access. And I fully support that. But the language here is, and as I reiterate, is that it doesn't speak to that. It just says, hey, you can't have vegetation beyond what we have deemed as your property line, which is a problem because it's not a fixed position. The dune isn't fixed. It's going to go in and out. And having looked at what SB 2020 ended up saying, it wasn't the same as what we've got written here. So, like I said, I'm hoping whoever is providing the guidance to the committee on Bill 42, if you could please have a look at that landscaping language and ensure what we're trying to do in ensuring access is what the language is stating, and not outlawing any vegetation mackay of a property line. Because at least in our neighborhood, a lot of it is providing a good service in helping to preserve the dune. None of it, in my mind, that I can see is actually acting as a shoreline hardening barrier. There are some examples in our neighborhood where you could make the case that they are interfering with some access with some of the taller now pocket that may be extending out. But I think the language needs to be more specific so that people who live out here aren't ripping up vegetation that's no problem, or there's no question about what is and what is not legal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Plowman. We will I will speak with Dr. Gonzer offline about getting more information about this, and we will see if it's something that we may want to address further in a future commission meeting. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Is there any other member of the public who at this time would like to bring additional input on matters not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we will go to our item number 13, which is our tentative next meeting dates. I know that Commissioner Islam has registered her availability on these dates, and I would just ask that the other commissioners take a look at their calendars and let OCCSR know if these dates are good, because then we can get them on the calendar, and it's always good for the public to have a lot of good notice for us. We have identified these because some of these may be in person out in the community. So I don't have anything else to add on to that. Thank you, Commissioner Otsuka, for emailing your availability. And as soon as we can, we will schedule and confirm those meetings. Director Gonzer?
Just a note on the proximity of the 18th and recognizing that Friday the 11th, which would normally be the latest day that we could post an agenda with the city clerk, is a state holiday. So we would need to finalize all agenda and material development and sharing out. The meeting minutes might be difficult with that timing, but we would need to post all of this on Thursday, the 10th, which is just a couple of weeks away.
Thank you for that reminder, Director Gonzer. With that in mind, we will go to item number 14, which is announcements. Do any commissioners have any announcements about upcoming events or publications of note, anything that is relevant to climate change that we should all know about? Yes, Commissioner Romine.
Thank you. Yeah, a couple items that might be of interest for future agendas, maybe for a briefing on both. First of all, a group of us working with the State Climate Change Commission are working on an interim update to the 2017 State of Hawaii Sea Level Rise Vulnerability and Adaptation Report. The statute that directed the commission at the state level and the DLNR to do that 2017 report that also led to the state sea level rise viewer, that statute directs an update at 5 years, which we're at now. So we're working to do kind of an interim update. It's a brief on the science, the sea level rise and climate science, how that's advanced since then. And then I think possibly of most interest to this group would be that we're kind of doing a status check on the series of 20 some recommendations that were in that state sea level rise report, and assessing what has been done to address those recommendations at the state and the county level. And we have a draft report that's going to be provided to the State Climate Commission next week. And I believe we're aiming to have a final report by December in time for the state to deliver to the state legislature. So I think if the commission members are interested, it might be helpful to provide a briefing on that. I'd be happy to do that, or maybe we invite somebody else from our group to do that, such as Leah Laramie. The other thing I wanted to mention was another report that's coming out next week. And this comes out of a North Shore Coastal Resilience Working Group that I participated in. Hawaii Sea Grant worked in partnership with the Surfrider Foundation and SSFM to bring together a working group of residents, agency members, concerned parties around these severe erosion problems that we're experiencing in a number of places on the North Shore of the island of Oahu. And there is a findings paper coming out from that next week. There'll probably be some news. I expect there to be some news about that as well. It's about adaptive coastal management recommendations, actions, and strategies. And I would suggest maybe we provide a briefing of that to the commission if folks that would be an interest. And again, it's something I might do, or we might invite someone like Lauren Blickley from the Surfrider Foundation who led that effort. So 2 possible agenda items. I don't know the process for getting things exactly on the agenda, but just want to throw those announcements out, and maybe we have some more discussion on them in the future.
Thank you, Commissioner Romine. Commissioner Otsuka put something in the chat that the Hawaii Department of, why don't you just say them? Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to plug that the Hawaii Department of Transportation has a carpool survey out that closes on Monday, October 31st. I plugged the link into the chat box for folks. This will help inform their carpooling services. So carpooling is important because it helps to reduce our emissions. That's one less car on the road, less traffic, less emissions, all that fun stuff. So please take that and help inform the DOT of their carpooling services and what you'd like to see. And then, sorry, I was just finishing posting the chat and I'll do it right after this. Brad, I think you're helping with this project, right? The Honolulu Beach project. So they have some outreach activities occurring at Honolulu Beach on Friday, October 28th. That's today, I think, yeah, 9 to 12. So if you want to go after this meeting, Saturday, October 29th, that's tomorrow, 12 to 3, and Friday, November 4th, 12 to 3. And then their last outreach event in person at this stage anyway is Saturday, November 5th, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. So they're wanting to hear from folks about how you currently use Honolulu Beach Park and any recommended restoration strategies you'd like to see. Brad, do you want to add anything else? This is really your project. I'm just on the periphery.
Yeah, thank you very much for reminding me and announcing that. This is around a feasibility study that that the DLNR is leading. Sea Grant is involved in this. The State Climate Commission is actually the one leading this, but it was with money from the Oahu Management MPO. Sorry, forgetting the acronym right there. But anyways, we're looking at alternatives, nature-based alternatives for both restoring the beach park at Honolulu that has been severely eroded and degraded, but also protecting the coastal highway. As I think you all are familiar, there's extensive shoreline armoring along that area of Ko'olauloa. There's been a lot of beach loss. We see an opportunity to save the beach park and protect the highway at the same time, addressing that local problem, but also providing a demonstration for other areas along Ko'olauloa and elsewhere. So if you're interested, please come out. If you'd like more information on the project, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you. Thanks, Kiana, for mentioning that.
I'll just add, sorry, Rosie, really quick. There is a survey also that I popped into the chat for this project too. So please fill out the survey, especially if you live in the Ko'olauloa region. Thank you.
Thank you so much, commissioners, for those announcements. We've reached the end of the agenda, And if there are no further comments, this meeting is adjourned. Thank
I have
you.
one further comment.
Uh-oh.
Just thank you, Rosie. This is your first meeting as chair and you did a great job. And I'm really excited with the new commissioners on board and that there's a lot of life being breathed back into the commission and I'm really excited going forward. That's it.
Thanks, Vicki. Thanks, everybody. I'm really looking forward to this new commission and all the great things we're going to accomplish together.
Thank you, everybody.
Aloha.
Bye.